Welcome to the Sports Talk Line Network, where we talk sports 24/7, 365. This is the NFL Draft 24/7, 365. We are pushing this out year round now, man. This is where you come. We're lucky enough today to have Connor Livesay, and we're going to talk what else? Senior Bowl practice. We're going to click back, talk about some guys, talk about what's going on. Hey, Connor Livesay, thank you so much for being here, man.
Yeah, excited to be back on and like you said, cover the NFL draft and hopefully talk about it almost every day for a long time. So that's the plan and we're excited to do it.
All right. Well, hey, let's dive right in. And as I understand, there are some players that caught your eye. And hey, your eye is what we're dealing with here. And the first guy up, man, I had to practice on this. The DB, Ifeatu.
Ifeatu Melifonwu.
Melifonwu. The last name was easy. It's just like it's spelled. But what's important here is how the guy plays.
Yeah, and he's a lot of fun. He's your prototypical big, long, physical corner. He's 6'2", 213 pounds. He's super athletic. Unlike most big physical long corners, he's probably better in off coverage than he is in press man. But he played a lot of zone and a lot of man coverage at Syracuse, so he's used to different coverages on the back end. Some teams are viewing him as a safety, so he has some versatility on the back end as well, which is always important. But the ball skills are there. The physicality against the run, he steps up, takes on blockers in the running game really well. And then obviously just the length is very important with him. And he's a great athlete. He said he's hoping to run in the low to mid 4.4s for a 6'2", 6'3", 213-pound corner. That's really good. So when you pair his size, length, physicality, and athleticism all together, you get a guy who might not go in the first round, but he's a guy that I think has a chance to go at the back end of the first, but more than likely he's going to go, I'd say, in the top 50 for sure. The Senior Bowl has been big for him, and obviously whatever testing they can get out without the combine is going to be big for him as well too. So if he tests well with his size, metrics, and tape, he'll be a top 50 guy for sure.
Well, let me ask you a little bit deeper about this position here, Connor, because much like JPP back in the day for the Giants, they changed the way that people were scouting and looking at defensive ends, well, certain types of defensive ends, on the blind side specifically. But now in DBs from the Legion of Doom, if you will, they have come up with a new type that they're looking for. And this guy is that type, isn't he?
Yeah, he fits that mold really well. I think actually the last few years you've kind of gotten away from it a little bit with guys like Jair Alexander, Denzel Ward, Jeff Okudah, guys who aren't the 6'2", 6'3", 215-pound guys. Like Jair Alexander's 5'10", 179 pounds coming out of
There's
Louisville.
always room for that 5'10" guy that can cover, right?
Yeah, and that's, I felt like for a while they're kind of getting away from the big, long, physical guys, but this draft has a bunch of them in here with Ifeatu Melifonwu, Patrick Surtain, Caleb Farley. So a lot of these guys in this class are the bigger, longer, more physical guys. But I think more than anything at the cornerback position in 2021 is you got to be an athlete. You got to be able to run with these guys, the Tyreek Hills. You got to be able to mirror the Devontae Adams off the line of scrimmage. And if you can't do that, you can't play. So while Richard Sherman, 10 years ago was probably the best corner in the league, I think his lack of athleticism finally kind of caught up with him. And you don't want Richard Sherman covering Tyreek Hill, and that's why they're drafting athletes at that position. And if you're running in the 4.5s, 4.6s, a lot of the times you're dropping in the draft. So it'll be big for those top guys to run well, and then obviously have that size and speed to pair with that athleticism.
Well, as Cowboys fans know, you don't want Bill Bates at cornerback. It just doesn't work. All right, well, let's stay on the defensive side of the ball, man, but move to defensive tackle, Levi Onwuzurike. All right.
Yeah, it was Onwuzurike. Yeah.
Exciting guy right now, huh?
Yeah, and he's actually been banged up. He practiced the first day, went off with trainers, and then he was banged up more on the second day. So he hasn't been practicing a lot at the Senior Bowl, which was going to be important for him because he was an opt-out guy. But he's a guy who he's going to play the three technique. He's going to rush the passer. For an undersized guy at 6'2.5", 290 pounds, he uses his length and size really well against the run. He locks out really well, defends multiple gaps really well. He has experience playing that nose tackle role at Washington. So even though he is an undersized guy, I don't think he's just that, third down pass rusher. He's a guy who can play on all three downs. You're going to want to play him, outside of the 2-eye and nose tackle. So you want to play him at the under. Yeah, he's a 3 tech. He could play some 5 technique and stuff like that as well too. I just don't think he's a guy you want lined up head over the center. And just you want him in a spot where he's able to one-on-one guards, one-on-one split combo box, split zone blocking schemes, and he can be a force when doing that because he is very athletic, very explosive, and very strong for a 290-pound guy.
Well, athletic, explosive, strong, defensive line. There's 32 teams in the NFL that can use a guy like that, right?
Yeah, that's right. And again, like he's another guy kind of like Melifonwu, who is kind of a top 50 borderline guy right now. Right. And it would be interesting to see what he would have done if he would have been completely healthy this whole Senior Bowl week, because I think he really could have made himself some money. And then obviously when he didn't play this year as an opt-out, I think he was a guy that if he would have played this year and done what a lot of people thought he could, and then he could have went to the Senior Bowl and did what a lot of people thought he could, you're talking about a guy who might have had a chance to go in the first round, kind of like Melifonwu, but just not playing in 2020 and then being banged up in the Senior Bowl week, it could hurt his draft stock a little bit. But the tape's good, and he's a guy, like I said, with his athleticism and strength and 3-down ability, he's going to be a top 50, top 60 guy in this class.
Well, almost assuredly it'll affect his tape with some teams, but you only have to be on one team's radar to get drafted, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, he's definitely a top 100 guy, I think. And it's just with the weird year, opt-out year, injury at the Senior Bowl, no combine, like you could see where some of these guys are going to fall down some boards.
All right. Well, let's go to another guy that's another name that's really difficult to pronounce. That's safety, Rickie Grant.
Yeah, that's probably the toughest one to say, but he's a lot of fun. When I first watched him back in the spring, I didn't love his tape. He was always good in coverage. He was always around the ball, but he was one of those guys that I thought was more of a guesser than an anticipator. So I felt like he took a lot of bad guesses at times, and it really never hurt him because it felt like on tape when he was guessing wrong, the ball would go the other way. But there's a lot of times where he'd be playing that deep third and he would break on an in-breaking route and leave the sideline open and the ball wouldn't go there, so it wouldn't hurt him. But I was like, man, is he not reading things the right way? What's going on? And then the second time I watched him, I think he's a very instinctive guy that probably trusts his instincts a little too much at times. So he can get tricked a little bit with quarterback's vision, quarterback's eyes.
What's a guy like that going to do when he has access to a better film room?
Yeah, well, and I think he's just a guy who, I mean, again, you can't say a guy has too much instincts, but you'd rather pull those back in than try to push them into somebody. And I think he's a guy that you just want to maybe rein him in a little bit and go, look, like, we see that you have great instincts, you have great awareness, but like, let's trust our ability a little bit too.
You're not Lawrence Taylor. We can't design a defense around you. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. But he's going to play the traditional free safety role. He's a good athlete, a really good run defender, plays the ball extremely well in coverage. And he's had a great week in Mobile, probably been one of the best players there, if not the best. So I think he's helped his draft stock a ton, and he'll probably be, if I had to guess today, I think he'll probably be the second or third safety drafted this year and could have a chance to be the first one drafted.
Well, I noticed that he is a quote unquote free safety, and I don't think there's any problem with that. Everybody understands, and you'd rather have a free safety than a strong safety because they're more difficult to find. But his physicality, he has no problems in the run game, does he?
No, he's a fearless run defender. I mean, again, like, you don't want him playing in the box, but he can come up from that deep third spot, fill alleys really well, take on blocks really well. And he's just a guy who wants to get his nose dirty in the running game. And a lot of the times those free safeties are guys who don't enjoy doing that. So the fact that he's willing and competitive doing so, that's just an aspect of his game that I think is really going to pop to teams, and they're going to like that because he's he's going to play free safety, but he's not going to hurt you against the run. And that's, very important for teams nowadays that can put a guy back there and trust that he can come up and make stops against the run.
Well, the more boxes you can check, right? This is a job interview. And now let's slide on to an area which it's been a few years now that the wide receiver class has been really strong. And I think this is a pretty good wide receiver class as well. But a couple guys jumped out at you. One right away, Amari Rogers, yeah?
Yeah, Clemson guy. Definitely had a great week down in Mobile. He's kind of your typical slot receiver, but I think he can do some other things. He can line up on the outside. He's a really good route runner. So he doesn't rely solely on like his, speed, quickness, and all that to get open. He can actually run routes with some nuance. So he could play on the outside, smaller guy. So that's going to be a big question, but he plays above the rim really well. There's a couple clips from the Senior Bowl on his one-on-one tape where he just goes up and high points the ball over bigger corners.
Right.
And I think that kind of gives a good feel for what he can do as an outside receiver too. But his releases off the line of scrimmage, his nuance throughout his routes, coming in and out of breaks at the top of routes are really clean. So I think he's a guy that we're not talking about enough right now because you got the big three in Devontae Smith, Jalen Waddle, Jamar Chase, and then you got your Rashad Batemans and Rondell Moores. But I think a guy like Amari Rodgers is probably not going to go where he should, and we'll be talking about him this time next year going, man, he was drafted 30, 40 spots from where he should have. And again, a big week in Mobile could kind of catapult his
enough
stock.
about him being on the Seahawks. Okay. I'm tired of them getting these guys.
Yeah. He is kind of like a Tyler Lockett style of receiver. So that's not a bad kind of style to I know you're talking probably more DK Metcalf, a guy who got
actually Tyler Lockett is exactly where I was dialed in. 100%.
Yeah. But yeah, definitely like Amari Rodgers. I think he's been really impressive in Mobile. Like I said, the route running quickness, ability to catch the ball above the rim, play bigger than his size is impressive with him. And he played at Clemson, so he's gotten that, he's gotten the roulette of talent. He's gotten the playoff teams, and he's had a good quarterback for sure. But I think he's kind of stepping off onto his own and is going to create his own path. And I like his ability a lot.
All right. As we move on to the next guy, let's just mention Metcalf. No, I think it's going to be a while before we see something like Metcalf again. I mean, this guy generational, isn't he?
Yeah. DK's a hell of a player for sure. So
he's different. He's different. And wow, how did the Seahawks get those guys? I mean,
I don't know.
Running back, wide receiver.
DK Metcalf was the number 6 overall player in that class for me. So
yes, you did. I boom. And hey, can you imagine if like the Beast and DK would be on the same team?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Moving on. But Dwayne Eskridge, wide receiver, dude's got some wheels, and he's got some skills too, doesn't he?
Yeah, Dwayne Escritch is a lot of fun, a smaller school, Western Michigan guy. So a lot of people probably don't know a ton about him right now.
They will.
He's a ton of fun and, kind of mimics what we just talked about with Amari Rodgers, just the quickness, speed, how explosive he is with the football in his hand. It's all very impressive.
He's having a good week too, isn't he?
Oh, yeah, very, very much so. He's a guy who, like I said, is going to go – there's some whispers that people were saying that he could even sneak into the first round, which seems a little rich to me.
Do the Raiders have a first round pick?
Yeah. No, I mean, again, like I think he's he's kind of your Michael Gallup guy who goes in the second, Gallup went in the third, but I could see Eskridge going in the second, third round and then just outproducing his draft stock as well. So a smaller school guy who can play in the slot, can play outside, really good route runner. He is explosive with the football in his hands, and that's what teams are looking for nowadays is guys who they can get the football to on the horizontal, based offense and then let them do a lot of the work, and that's what he is.
After all of the combine underwear warrior focus, I have to say the last few years, the focus has been more on football players, hasn't it?
Yeah, for the most part, I could definitely agree with that. You see guys get overdrafted. AJ Terrell was one guy last year who went to the Falcons who, was a second or third round player on tape and then went in the first, went in the top 15, went 16 overall to Atlanta. And then you see guys like Henry Ruggs, who was probably the third or fourth best receiver in the draft class, but he was drafted ahead of CeeDee Lamb, ahead of Jerry Jeudy, because of that speed. So you got your teams like the Raiders, who seem to value that athleticism a lot more than just the ability to play. And I think receiver is a position where you have to be able to run routes. You have to be able to high point the football.
In today's game, especially.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, if you're extremely fast, that is extremely efficient and it can be used as a weapon in every offense. But I think the Raiders were disappointed with Henry Ruggs this year. I think Mike Mayock actually came out today and said that.
Oh, he challenged him. He challenged him.
Yeah.
Said he was weak in the weight room, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, come on.
Yeah, but that's his fault for drafting him over CeeDee Lamb and Jerry Jeudy. It's not Jerry.
He's the expert. We cannot question him. All right. Or nor should we. All right. Hey, let's move on to the next item on your list. Well, on my list, actually, because this is a guy I got to ask you about. He's not a guy that showed up on on things that you and I were talking about. But Mac Jones out of Bama, 6'3". He's done well this week, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's hit all the thresholds on weigh-ins. So he came in with good measurements, good metrics as far as his weigh-ins went. And then, like you said, he's had a really good week, but I think that's what he is. He's a guy that is going to make the right decisions. He is going to be a very intelligent player with the football in his hands. He's not going to make many mistakes. That's what he is. And he's a bus driver. He's not going to lead teams.
Is there such a thing as an athletic game manager?
No, and he is not athletic whatsoever. So and again, I think you're
that's
seeing,
my point. Right. I'm just saying, like, come on. He is what he is, but that doesn't mean it's a bad thing, does it?
No, I mean, in today's NFL, you have to have a quarterback that can do a ton of things. I mean, again, like, I know Tom Brady's getting ready to play in the Super Bowl, but that team is just so talented. The defense is so good. The weapons are so good.
Brady's changed the way he's playing too.
Right.
He's playing so aggressive right now. I mean, right now in today's NFL, you want more Brett Favre and less Alex Smith. Am I wrong?
Right. And I think, I mean, again, Patrick Mahomes, Deshaun Watson, the top, Dak Prescott, the top quarterbacks in the league right now are guys who can move in and out of the pocket. They can make plays on and off base. They can use their legs when they need to. You're not getting these. I heard a very good example today. Like, Justin Herbert and the Chargers offense had a really good year. If he wasn't the athlete that he was, that offense, they're one of the worst teams in the league, but his athleticism takes over a lot, allows him to get out of pressure.
Totally compensates.
Right. And you're just not seeing, Dwayne Haskins is a perfect example. Came out of Ohio State, was as unathletic as you could be, but had the big arm. And it just shows, I think it shows nowadays.
Game managers look great in a red shirt, don't they?
Yeah. You can't be a top 10 to 15 quarterback in the NFL nowadays.
Brett Favre looked like shit in practice.
Yeah.
Because he would throw interceptions and the game manager would be sitting there looking good, moving the offense, and then the game would come.
Yep.
And it'd be fourth quarter, and you'd need to score.
Like I said, it's tough to view these Alabama quarterbacks too. I mean, we saw it with Tua this year. You come in, everybody – without the hip injury, Tua was supposed to be this generational talent. He gets to Miami, and you just see that, when they don't have these awesome offensive lines, awesome defense, awesome coaches, awesome receivers, awesome running backs.
System QB is what you're labeled with. At this point, you come out of Bama, you're a system QB, right or wrong?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to argue that at all because there hasn't, Tua was supposed to be the first one that didn't fit that mold. And I think when you're getting benched for Ryan Fitzpatrick every other week, it kind of tells you exactly what it needs to tell you. But Mac Jones is probably going to get drafted in the first round because of what he did at the back end of the season. And again, he's a
talented guy.
Yeah, he could go to a Washington football team or a New Orleans Saints and probably have success because they don't need a guy to do a whole lot.
No,
but I mean, again, there's no
way. And he can deliver that.
Yeah, and there's no way I wouldn't be drafting. I would not be drafting Mac Jones in the top 75. That's
All
probably
right.
where he'll end up
All
with
right.
me.
Well, there it is. Well, Connor, look, I want to take time to thank you so much for being here. Tell everyone out there, hey, look, we're going to be diving in deeper and deeper as we get to the draft and then post-draft. We want to keep mentioning this. We're going to be going 24/7, 365, year-round, in deep like you've never seen before. This is the place. Connor, as you sign off, please tell us about where we can find you on the different social media platforms.
Yeah, just really, I'm only on Twitter at Connor NFL Draft, and that's where a lot of my content goes up at. That's where I spend most of my time as far as football content and where I write and where everything goes out. So if you're interested in reading or hearing the stuff that I do, that's probably the place to go and find it.
All right. Well, look, we're going to be back here. We're going to be covering the Senior Bowl all the way through. We're going to be doing a post-bowl wrap-up. If you're talking Senior Bowl, if you're talking NFL Draft, this is the place to be. Thank you so much. Hit that subscribe. Hit that notify. Slap every button you can. Come back here for Connor, Mr. Livesay. Thank you so much for being here, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, everybody out there, till next time, listen like you play right here on Sports Talk Line. Good day.